So I want to spend some time in this episode today talking about the ways in which we approach masculinity work moving forwards and the way in which I think the most potent and most transformational work can take place. Now, I have spoken a little bit about this in previous episodes, and I've spent a bit of time in previous episodes kind of unpacking some of my ethos around the work that I do, but also the work that I think is potent and transformative in this specific space, masculinity's work, right? But I want to be a bit intentional or a bit more intentional in this episode because I feel like there is an approach that is needed that can be incredibly beneficial and incredibly fruitful, no pun intended, as we jump to this episode when it comes to the work that we're doing. And so I want to speak a little bit about root work versus fruit work. And I want to preface this, if you're new here for the first time, this is the first time you're checking in and you're kind of like curious about what this sort of episode format entails. This is my perspective and not the perspective. I am what's called a masculinities educator. I go around different schools in the UK talking to mostly young men and masculinities about masculinity and thematic areas and areas related to masculinity. But I want to be very clear and very intentional that what I'm bringing into the space as someone that is in this field, for lack of a better term, this is my perspective and not the perspective. I don't deliver any of these episodes from a position of absolute truth. This is the way, this is how it should be done. But rather, this is what feels congruent or truthful from my perspective. So I want to make the difference, or make the time to explore the difference between fruit work and root work. In my opinion, if I'm being very honest and very candid, I feel like a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment in relation to masculinities, but also in the gender equality, gender equity space in general, is very fruit based. We are identifying, and I'm using binary terms here, but we're identifying bad fruit and we're trying to take the bad fruit from the figurative tree. We're looking at misogyny. We're looking at sexism. We're looking at male violence against women and girls. We're looking at male mental health and men's mental health movements. We're looking at the confusion and at times uncertainty around masculinity and masculine identity. We're looking at all of these really important areas, but we're approaching them as bad fruit on a tree that must simply just be taken off and thrown away somewhere far, instead of looking deep within the roots of that tree to identify and to really inspect and examine, where is this coming from? Where is this being enabled to grow, for lack of a better term? And is there something that we can do in the soil that enables us to not just simply pluck bad fruit from the tree, but to ensure that the trees that we're growing is able to grow in the most, healthy soil possible? And when I talk about healthy soil, I'm not, again, just to be super clear and intentional, making reference to the discourse around healthy masculinity and toxic masculinity. I'm using it in its literal sense here. If you're new here, those terms are not typically terms that I use in my work. And there is an episode, quite a few episodes back, where I explain and examine this, but really looking to create and intentionally cultivate healthy soil to recognize that what we're doing isn't just simply picking bad fruit from a tree, but actually growing with intention, examining the roots, going deep into the soil to unearth the problematic areas, for lack of a better term. And when it comes to masculinity, for me, I feel like some of these areas that we need to explore are systemic or cultural. They are a part of our cultural cognition. And what I mean by that is the ideas around masculinity, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes as well, this dominance-based masculinity, that being a man is about being as strong as we possibly can. It's about being the protector, the provider, not showing any weakness, being in control of our emotions. This dominance-based masculinity normalizes a specific expression of what being a man looks, walks, talks, and feels like. But that is a systemic inheritance. It's something that's passed down. It's something that we're taught very early as young men, as boys. We're not just born into the world with these belief systems. These belief systems are passed down into and onto us. They are normalized through culture. That means that it is a systemic cognition, at least from my perspective. It's something that is a part of the cultures that we exist within. And that doesn't just apply to ideas of masculinity, but it also applies to the way in which ideas of masculinity are performed. Then we start moving into behaviors like sexism, like normalized misogyny. Oh, it's just boys being boys, it's part of lad culture, just what boys do. We start leaning into cultural explanations for harmful behavior, but that is a cultural cognition. How we normalize particular behaviors, how we bypass the uncomfortable conversations when those behaviors are named, how we move past naming harm as harm, but using some form of, explanation or rationalization to make sense of it. That's systemic, that's cultural, that is deep within the soil of the figurative trees we're looking to inspect and examine. When it comes to masculinity work, I feel like the most potent long-term facing work is rooted, no pun intended, in the systemic. Understanding the inheritance that is passed down culturally, understanding that rigid model of masculinity that normalizes specific embodiments, normalizes specific behaviors, normalizes this specific way of presenting, and the way in which that is normalized and encouraged, the way in which it puts pressure on men and masculinities, but also the ways in which ideas of masculinity and those behaviors are encouraged and normalized, how they intertwine with each other, how they work off of each other. This is particularly important for me when it comes to the long-term work that we're looking to bring into school spaces, bring into our wider cultural conversations. The conversations around masculinity for me aren't just simply a let's pluck the bad fruit from the tree and move on. We've got to inspect the systems that we're a part of, the systemic cognition, the structures that exist around us. And we can't do that unless we're being particularly intentional about actually, let's slow it right down and look at what we've normalized, look at what we've encouraged, look at what we've incentivized, look at that inheritance, inspect that rigid archetype, and look at how that rigid archetype shows up in the spaces and places that we exist within, and what we can do to begin inspecting, examining, and metabolizing those ideas, those embodiments, those expressions of masculinity moving forwards. For me, the future of masculinity work is found in the root work, not just simply in plucking the bad fruit from the trees. So a slightly short episode this week, but something that I feel like I've been thinking about a lot since I've been, kind of coming down off of a lot of delivery and thinking about my intentions for the academic year ahead, and also what my intentions are as a person that takes space in those educational environments, what I'm looking to really focus on and what I'm looking to really bring into what I do as a professional in this space. So I hope this episode has landed with you. I hope it resonates. I hope there's some things for you to think about and take away when it comes to your own practice, but also maybe the conversations that you're having around masculinity in the spaces that you exist within. And if you did like this episode, I hope to see you in a future episode that drops every Monday at 7 a.m. UK time. Or if you want to go back and check some of the episodes out that I've done before, please do as well, because again, these are my thoughts and ideas in relation to masculinity work. So I will see you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your week and stay well and stay blessed. Bye bye.